Okay, let's keep going. We're going to analyze the Handmaid's Tale extract now. That is this extract, which was introduced in the last video. You can pause and read beforehand if you like, and the link to download this is below. Here is my planner. As before, you cannot use this planner on your I/O, but after I finish modeling the literary and non-literary analysis, I will talk about condensing this down to the 10 bullet points that are allowed. My goal is to not talk for more than 4 minutes and 30 seconds, because that would be a nice split out of 10 for The Handmaid's Tale. In The Handmaid's Tale, Atwood emphasizes the point that objectification based on gender happens regardless of time and place, particularly to women. In the extract, you can see Aunt Lydia in the red center explaining her interpretation of women in the past oiling themselves like roast meat on a spit. And she's talking about perhaps women at the beach. There's a lot of interesting language in there. She's got a simile of oiling themselves like roast meat, so they're roast meat. It's food. Women are something to be eaten or consumed by men. The one-syllable words make her sound almost disgusted, with the emphasis on the word spit, which could be a pun, not just the stick that the meat is impaled upon, but also the figures are literally spitting out. The whole thing creates an impression of disgust. And to modern day audiences reading this interpretation of rather normal behavior, such as women going to a beach, would perhaps be offended, but also maybe wonder if perhaps we do objectify women, and but most likely be defensive and a bit offended by Aunt Lydia's characterization of our own behavior. This connects to a place in the modern, or I should say, in the time of The Handmaid's Tale in Gilead, when Offred visits the doctor and he offers to impregnate her. He calls me honey. That's what he called his wife. We are all honey. So again, we've got women as a food. There's a pun there, not just the pet name, but honey as in the sweet sweetener that can be devoured. And the italics to emphasize Offred's disbelief that he would use this term for her, because there's no relationship between the two of them. The doctor could not be more unfamiliar to her. And the audience is repulsed by the doctor and his false sympathy as he's attempting to essentially molest her or sexually exploit her. And this just demonstrates by Atwood that Offred cannot escape objectification, even in this draconian environment with the government having total control. The extract also refers to women as spectacles, which is a hyperbolic language and implies that all clothing that women wear that is revealing is somehow responsible for anything bad that happens to them, and that's victim blaming, which is another point that that Atwood is exploring in this passage is victim blaming, and that tends to happen regardless of time, such as when Aunt Lydia says, "Such things did not happen to nice women," things being in italics, and also a euphemism for perhaps sexual violence or rape. And readers who value women's right would feel outrage at this just open victim blaming, and perhaps people with conservative religious beliefs could either maybe agree with this or quite possibly be offended by the way Atwood is characterizing something that they might themselves believe in. But if they weren't offended by that, they would definitely be offended in the scene where Janine is being raped. This from the body of work. The women at the Red Center chant, "Her fault, her fault, her fault," and she did, she did, she did. So these are all in unison. So we have repetition there of the blaming, this abusive tone. There's the rule of three, which add extra power to their condescending blaming, and of course the italics again to call the attention to whose blame it is. The italics always on the pronoun of the woman, and the reader would be very shocked by this because this is tremendously this is horrific victim blaming, and Atwood does this to take any victim blaming that might be happening in the current world and exaggerate it to point out the flaws in victim blaming, and also to point out that it transcends time. So at that point, we'll stop it, and I would move on. I would time myself, and I would say, I have enough in this, in my analysis, to not need any more. This final box of further evidence is really only if you're recording yourself with the clock on and you're finding you're not have enough time, then you could include more evidence from the body of work or extract. I certainly have more I could say on this topic of objectification by the state and victim blaming, but I don't need to, and I don't have time to. What you really want to make sure before you go in is that you are very confidently filling up the 10 minutes. And once you're doing that, then it's time to start condensing from this down to the 10 bullet points. But first, I will explore the non-literary text, the Old Spice advertising campaign. So see you in the next video. Okay, thanks for watching. So some tips for success: be sure you're recording yourself. I suggest breaking up your recording in the early phases, so you're making sure that your introduction is 45 seconds or so. Each work you spend about 4 minutes and 30 seconds on, and then about 30 seconds for inclusion. Once you get it all smooth and you know your time's work, then record yourself all together. And just a quick note that everything in this video is exactly the same for the IBDP literature course, because this is analyzing a literary work. There's still the global issue, there's still the connecting to body of work. The difference comes with the not lit text, which I will model in the coming video.